Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collidercast, episode 52. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis.
And it's Andy's back.
He is!
He is
Hurrah!
back. Boo.
Did you miss me, boys?
Hurrah!
Boo!
Boo, cheeky. I have to admit, I did listen to the last podcast, and it was very... What's the word?
Streamlined. Easy listening. Calm.
Boring.
Like the kind of games that you enjoy, which got a good feasting because you weren't there to defend them.
I remember, yes. I was shouting at the podcast, calling you a variety of pretty words, actually, when you did that, because I wasn't there to defend. Just because you don't have the kind of brain that can cope with such complexity, Mr. Cage.
I think I generally win more of those games than you do, actually.
Annoyingly, I think you're right.
I'm just not comfortable when I'm doing it.
You feel free to lose any time.
Did you actually see the one from Shut Up and Sit Down this week? I think it was just on one of their Twitter things, pictures of people playing games. It's like, are these people playing a Euro game, or have they just recently been given some very bad news? Because they're all kind of biting their lip and looking down, kind of downtrodden. And
oh dear.
I think the easy way to tell is, are they standing up?
yeah, that's the sign of a good. You're thinking hard if you're standing up, and get close to the board, get a good look.
Yes, it's a good point. You do that in poker as well. You can tell when the pros are getting serious and they're thinking, do I gamble all my money? Standing up, walking round. Ooh. Sadly, there was not $1 million at stake when we play viticulture. Maybe there should be.
Well, if you've got $1 million to spare, Andy.
I do not.
Yeah.
I spent them all on Kickstarter.
Maybe it should be bottles of wine, since it'd be more thematically accurate.
That's a good shout.
Whoever wins gets a case of red or a case of white.
Oh, now, there you go. That's a great idea. We'll write that down. Deluxe
Hope
edition
you like
of
Lambrusco.
Viticulture. Oh. It's better than Lambrini, I suppose. But only
not.
just.
Oh dear.
I'm very jealous of you, Mr. Cage.
Ah, yes. I did think, actually, I felt a bit guilty. It was a family do. We organised to go and see Star Wars A New Hope with a live orchestra. And I'm sorry, Steve, but it was amazing.
Awesome. So was it the film at the same time as the music? So instead of you hear the musical score in the film, they just play the music live?
Yeah, so picture massive, great big screen up in front of you, and then just below it, a live orchestra playing all the music.
Awesome.
They isolated the score from the script, so because could you hear the talking, or was it just the visuals and the orchestra?
So it was perfect normal film, except that all of the music was played live, except when the conductor had a bit of a funny turn, had to go off stage, and they had to sharpishly cut in the cantina music that they were about to... They started playing, and then it stopped for a moment, and then we realised the conductor had gone, and then it suddenly started again, but no one was playing it. It was like, hang on a minute. But he came back, he felt better, the paramedics did wonders for him, and they played the rest, and it was fantastic.
Awesome.
Except for the two people who got drunk and sat about 3 rows behind us talking at the tops of their voices.
Oh.
Oh.
And when confronted by an angry Kaz, my wife was not happy about them doing this.
I'm not surprised.
Their defence was, well, we only really get one night out a year, and this is our opportunity to catch up. It's like, well, why the do you come to the cinema then?
Yeah, why don't you just go to the pub?
These tickets weren't exactly cheap either. They're like 70 or 80 quid or something. So
worth it though.
It was definitely worth it. Just why would you do that and then come and talk?
Exactly. You just turn around. I'm sorry, is the film ruining your conversation?
Yeah, we're pretty much saying that.
Oh, well, it did look pretty good, actually, from the photo you showed. It was lovely. It looked like a nice venue as well.
Yeah, Birmingham Arena's actually pretty good. It's quite wide. I'd definitely go and see another film with the live score.
Awesome.
I imagine something like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or something along those lines would probably be pretty good.
Yeah, anything by John Williams, really.
Pretty much,
Indiana Jones, yeah. He does know what he's doing, does Mr. Williams?
Hoping that if they do Empire, I'm definitely going for Empire.
Oh, hello, yes.
Yeah.
Leave the lights
Worth it
off.
for the Imperial Death March alone.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
There was a lot of nice touches. Like when they first started up, they played the and
Got the Fox music, Jesus, wow.
So they played that in, and everyone cheers. And then like it started off with the regular Star Warsy intro, and it was like that was good. That was good.
I can't hear that the same anymore after watching the Simpsons movie.
Yeah. So, Andy, you've moved house, haven't you?
I have, finally. It was a bit of an ordeal.
We can tell because you've got proper internet now. Your webcam looks considerably better, and it's at a frame rate above 3.
Yes, it's no longer a PowerPoint presentation.
And just as importantly, or more importantly for our listeners, the audio quality is improved. There is no echo.
No, I know.
None that I can hear.
I would say more importantly, he's moved the camera around so we don't get the webcam at crotch height anymore. So,
Oh yeah. Do you know what? I thought there was something better about this evening.
Tonight's broadcast is brought to you with 100% less sausage.
Then we're no, I'm having the flashbacks now. Right, let's move quickly on.
I have moved.
has your board game selection made it safely to your new house?
It has, completely intact. It's all set up. It even has its own room. How amazing is that? Much to Alora's consternation, actually, because we were discussing before we moved and as we moved what we're going to do with the particular room it's ended up in, because it's what we lovingly know as the basement, because it has no windows, but it isn't a basement. It's just below the room I'm currently in. But we hadn't really got any use for that particular room. It's basically just going to be storage. And the room that we've kind of called the summer room, which is like the room to the back door, the back garden, is like a nice sort of airy open space. We thought, well, we'll store them in there. Because it looks nice, it's good display, there's lots of light, and we could end up playing games down there in the summer, for example. But then we sort of put the cats in there as they're acclimatising to the house.
And now it stinks of cat piss.
Basically, yes. Yeah, there is a risk of soiling, let's put it that way. So I had the genius idea. So I tell you what, why don't I move the Kallax into the cellar, basically, the basement? And that way I can move all my guitars in there as well. And basically any of the stuff that Alora of mine that she hates will go into one room. She can shut the door and never see it ever again. And she said, yes, great idea. So I did. So and
Steve's gesturing wildly around him at the same thing that he's done in his house.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. And I've even taken a load of offcuts from having the house carpeted and carpeted the room as well myself, so it's brilliant. I've put my Dungeons and Dragons chest in there, so basically, inadvertently, I've ended up with my own man cave, and Alora hates the idea because I win. So I can't believe you ended up with a man cave. How have you done that?
Sneakily.
Yes, sneakily.
Played the long game.
That's it. But yes, it is all in. It is all set up. I need another Kallax, but I already knew that before I moved. But it's all in, and I moved it. Frank West actually wants to know this, is how I moved it. It was basically slowly, I think is the answer to that question. I basically put it into 4 or so large cardboard boxes and moved it kind of over time, over about 3 or 4 journeys in the car, because I kept coming back and forward to Bewdley as we were decorating the place before with the carpet. So that was quite an easy one, but I suspect for Frank's move, it might not be that simple. So my answer was lots of cardboard boxes. But given that Frank's collection is inordinately larger than mine, that's probably going to need a truck of its own. So we shall see.
At least a forklift.
Yes. But yes, it's all in, it's all good, it's all intact. There was only one casualty of the dreaded everything goes everywhere. And, surprisingly enough, it wasn't Lords of Waterdeep.
Phone's on silent, eh?
It was vibrating.
That's not silent.
Didn't make any noise.
I could hear it.
Shh. Because it was on a vibrating mount.
Because it was on the microphone, that's why.
Hey. Shush.
Cat's vibrating now as well.
Cat's problems, yes. Oh, yes, it wasn't Lords of Waterdeep, much to everyone's surprise. It was actually Hexpanse. It just went everywhere. The lid was hanging off at the end of it all.
Expanded.
Oh. Good Lord. There's no excuse for jokes like that, John.
Steve's going to cut this bit, isn't he? I can tell.
I don't think I'm going to have the energy, to be fair.
After we worked so hard as well.
Yeah.
That was ad-libbed as well. That's not even scripted. That's how genius we are.
I'm sure you can't tell, right, folks? Oh dear.
So yes, I'm in. I've moved. And Bewdley has its own board gaming group, which is nice.
Ooh. Very good.
So it's like settling into a nice, comfortable pair of pants.
Wait, So, I think you have reached a new level of dedication. Not only have you managed to put all your board games in their own little room, but you've also managed to put them in a room that's devoid of light, therefore preserving the covers more thoroughly than one might otherwise do. Okay, no, that's enough. Are you putting that cat's bottom in the camera deliberately
I am not
now, Andy?
putting it. No, it just seems to be wandering around on its own. Banjo, for goodness sake. There you go.
I'm not quite sure what's worse, Andy's crotch or a cat's bum.
At least he didn't show you the hole. He's done that to me before. Just stood in front of me with his tail up. You're like, no, I don't need to see that.
No, that's what he just gave us, Andy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, well done, Banjo.
Thank you, Banjo, giving us the arsehole.
You have not endeared
Right.
yourself to the Collider crew there, Banjo.
I like cats, but not that bit.
No, no one likes that bit.
So, perhaps it's time to move swiftly away from cat's bottoms and into a more exciting area, which is the news. So, what has the news funnel been presenting us with in the last week or two? Well, both Andy and I received today Nemesis.
Yes. Hand
Awakened
delivered to
Realms.
John's desk, I might add, by my good self.
Yeah, thanks very much.
That's all right. I mean, when I say that, I mean, I got it from stores because I happened to be down there getting mine, but, you know.
Awakened Realms have managed to make good on their promise and managed to get it to us not just a bit before Christmas, but well before.
Indeed. I mean, this has really come through quite quickly, much to everyone's surprise, because, I mean, Lords of Hellas took quite a while, as did This War of Mine, but for some reason, Nemesis seems to have taken a lot less time than we were expecting, which is nice. Good. It is good. Very good.
So all I've managed to do so far is unbox it and have a look at the components, which I can say look good.
Agreed. That's pretty much as far as I've got as well, but it does look nice.
They look considerably less flimsy than the prototype that we played. Like the Queen could not stand up in that. Whereas
true.
now she's got a more crouched, more holding on to a lid of bad stuff erupting from a pipe.
Yeah, I do wonder how many pieces that Queen model was in by the time I'd sent it back to Poland.
It was definitely in more than the number that arrived when we got it.
Yeah.
It wasn't it, if I remember rightly, wasn't it beyond the healing power of even blue tack?
Yes, it was indeed. It was far beyond that scope.
We needed gorilla glue, and possibly a welding torch.
Well, I'd already super-glued it back once.
Oh, Jesus, really?
Yeah, and it was so flimsy because it was so tall and spindly that, and it was, you got to remember, it's a prototype, so it's like a resin STL kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like a fancy 3D printing. So it hasn't got the real structure which holds it together that an actual cast miniature would have. You know. I was a bit worried when that fell apart. And I opened the box. It's like, oh, I think that's supposed to be one thing. Oh dear.
Uh-oh. There'll be more of that very soon once we've had a chance to play some of it. Although
Definitely.
by very soon, knowing me and Andy, sometime the next 3 months.
you mean based on our City of Kings record, it took us 9 months to get round to actually playing it.
Yeah, but super excited about it all the time.
Yes.
See, here's the weird thing, though. It can be played solo, so it depends whether Andy's busy or whether he should be unpacking. Because when he was supposed to be packing, he was playing Deep Madness. So I wonder whether when he's supposed to be unpacking, he'll be playing this.
I was packing at that time. I just got bored and carried on with the same game because it took that long. I got to 9:30 at night and thought, this, I'm going to play my game instead.
Sure, Andy, we totally believe you. 100%. We are on board. We believe.
Well, you can believe what you wish.
Also from Awaken Games, they've just gone live today with something called Tainted Grail, which looks quite exciting. And it must be quite exciting because it funded in 15 minutes. They needed 40 grand. The last time I looked, it was at about 800,000.
Jesus! That's impressive.
It does look very pretty. It's like grimdark. It looks like grimdark. God, I'm going to say it.
Not Poldark.
No, you're allowed to slap me later, Andy. It looks like a grimdark version of talisman.
Wash your mouth out.
Okay, so it's now at £908,000 pledged.
Bloody hell.
Jesus.
10,000 backers in a
Wow.
couple of hours.
Safe to say that that'll be all right.
No, they've got my bloody number, Awakened Realms, because this has been on my Facebook feed for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Now, straight away I went, ooh, I like the look of this. And I must admit, I'm tempted. Although, have you watched the video?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit of it, yes.
I cannot work out for the life of me where the narrator of that video is supposed to be from, because it starts off in Sheffield, then pops to Glasgow for a few minutes, then goes to London via Ireland.
Yeah, I must admit, I struggled a bit with that.
It does look nice. I did see. I mean, I've seen a couple of advertisements for it over the last couple of weeks or so, and I thought, it looks all right. I didn't actually realise it was from Awakened Realms, but now it's from Awakened Realms. I'm like, ooh, hello. They have a bit of a track record now. But as John and I have just backed their last one and received it, I think it's your turn, Mr. Tudor.
I'll be honest, I'm probably going to back this.
Oh, well, there you go.
There we go.
It's an adventure survival co-op board game set in a grim world inspired by Arthurian legends. So co-op or solo play for 1 to 4 players, and I think it looks rather good.
It does. Oh, now you've mentioned
Does
Arthur.
actually.
I'm like, that looks pretty good as well. God damn it. How long is the campaign?
Oh, it's 22 days, I think, and if you back it today, you get the 5th player for free.
Well, that's pretty good. So it's basically a free expansion.
Yeah, which they've also said, even if you back it for £1, you can still get it in the Pledge Manager. So if you back it today, even for £1, you can still get that add-on later on, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah.
Yes, that is very nice. I
Of
think they did
course.
the same for Nemesis, I think. Or am I
Yeah,
thinking
there
of
was a
someone
medic
else?
one. You got
That's
the medic
the one.
as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're pretty good Awakened Realms for doing things like that. I think it's basically it's a shoe-in, really. You know, they've got 800 grand in it in 5 minutes. Chances are, anyone who's backed it for £1 is probably going to go further on. Not that I'm speaking from experience, of course.
No, that must be someone else we're thinking of.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, other stuff that's been the news. It came to a few of our attentions that on Reddit, someone has spotted that Frosty the Snowman, that lovable kids character, does actually look a lot like Frosty the Snow Lich.
What?
Well, think about it. You know, he's this animated snowman. That top hat, it's not just any old top hat, it's his phylactery. It's animated his body into this snow beast. He's charmed a bunch of kids to be his thralls. He's got his broomstick staff. And thumpity thump thump is the sounds of bodies hitting the ground as their life forces are drained into the aforementioned phylactery, fueling another chance at winter destruction before the seasons change anew.
It's dark, but I like it.
Yeah, some people have got a vivid imagination. They've actually done a proper D&D stat block for it.
I was about to say I could create a stat block for maybe an adventure I'm writing, but if someone else has done it, I'll just steal it.
Make use of. It caught our attention and amused us greatly.
Ooh, what's this next one?
Yeah, Andy, something for you from Stonemeier.
Hello.
Or Stonemeier Games, I should say, is a new title called Wingspan, but it's not designed by Jamie. It's designed by Elizabeth Hargrave. So it has his blessing, but it's by another designer. Artwork from Natalia Rojas, Anna Maria Martinez Gimarillo, and Beth Sobel. I probably got
It's
those all
almost
wrong.
as if we're in Spain.
Yeah, almost. Monch 2, Rodney.
Indeed, yes. Good grief.
Right, so now we've pissed off all our German listeners with our bad pronunciation, right? So we've got the guys from Popplesheep, we've got your mate after us. Now Alberto's going to kill us next time we see him.
How many more boxes do we need to tick?
well, there's all of Europe to piss off, I suppose.
French, the Dutch, the Swedish. I mean, there's plenty of 27 countries, I believe.
So yeah, anyway, the game itself is a competitive medium-weight card-driven engine-building board game for 1 to 5 players. 40 to 70 minutes, ages 10 plus. The rest of the details that I've managed to glean are scant, to say the least. Jamie's teasing us.
Jamie's being a big tease.
Yeah, he's been teasing people on Instagram for a couple of weeks now. Elora found the tease about the same sort of time Rory did, actually. And it was just like some eggs. And it did look nice. It's obviously, which goes along with the theme there of birds and things. So, be interested to see what they do. But I mean, I'm obviously interested in Stonemeier's stuff, but I am usually less interested in card games. But we shall see.
I quite like engine builders, so I'm intrigued. Jamie says, if you like terraforming Mars or gizmos, you will probably like this game. I'm paraphrasing that a little bit, but that was the gist of his sentiment. And finally, my last little news tidbit is that Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated is coming out.
Whoa. Hang on, that's 3 things at once there.
Whoa, sweet child of mine.
Do you want to break it down, Steve? Come.
Clank,
Yep.
okay. Clank Legacy, you say? Okay, now that's a big deal. And then you're saying it's an Acquisitions Incorporated version of Clank Legacy.
Ding! Give that man a star.
Well, I was with you for 2 out of those 3 things there, Steve. What's the Acquisitions Incorporated bit? Actually, we should probably start at Clank and go from there, shouldn't we, really?
So, I know John's played Clank. Have you played Clank?
I played it with you, you daft bastard. Yes.
Yeah, I thought you had. But I know you both played it with me, but not both at the same time. So I couldn't quite remember who played it and who hadn't. So yeah, Clank, for those who don't know, is the deck building board game where you're trying to grab treasure and get back to the surface. Basically, go into the dungeon, grab treasure, get back to the surface. But the more actions you do, the more Clank you generate, which attracts the dragon. Too much attraction to the dragon, and he turns you into burnt toast. So, of course, legacy games, which we all well know and love, but I don't think any of us have finished a single legacy game.
I have.
Oh, I was just about to say, that's the way they're supposed to be played, right? They're a legacy.
Yeah, this is your legacy that you pass down to your grandchildren. Yeah, see if you can finish this, Tommy, because Grandad failed.
15 generations of Cage this game's been handed down through, and we still haven't completed it. One day, grandson.
When I were a lad, we started game 1. We're on game 4.
Although we had to go back to game 3 again because we realised we did something wrong in the rules.
That sounds about right, actually. But yes, no, I finished Charterstone.
Charterstone. I'm 1 game off finishing that. That tells you how bad we are at finishing legacy games. I've only got to do the final game in Charterstone, and neither me or Amanda are interested in actually finishing it.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Yes, so, of course, we know about legacy games, so the kind of games where you make permanent changes to the game, add new rules, rip up cards, and such like. Acquisitions Incorporated is Penny Arcade's Dungeons and Dragons live play podcast.
Indeed.
Oh, interesting.
So it's the Penny Arcade crew with some extras. Patrick Rufus is often there. Chris Perkins is often DMing for them, though I think he's just handed that over to Jamie Crawford, which is one of the rules writers for D&D. He's going to be DMing it soon. So it's their characters. So it's... oh god, they've got some ridiculous names, and I can't remember what the name characters are. Jim Darkblood or something like that is the wizard character.
It's Omen, something or other feature in that. Yeah.
So I found that quite a bizarre thing. I thought just doing Clank Legacy would be enough for everyone to go Clank Legacy,
totally.
but then to add on Acquisitions Incorporated as well, I thought was almost a weird choice actually, because I thought it would surely Clank Legacy on its own would have been enough.
You would have thought so. Now, the danger here, I mean, I'm very interested in hearing because I really enjoyed playing Clank, and I think it's a great idea. I haven't played Clank in space yet, but adding the Acquisitions Incorporated, does that not run the risk of increasing the cost because of the IP? I wonder.
Maybe.
It's that one of those things, does it increase the popularity of the game because PAX, Penny Arcade's a big thing, so it's got all the followers of that? Or, like, I've just said it and you didn't know Acquisitions Incorporated. Where did you, Andy?
I did not.
So,
no.
Is it going to risk the thing that actually the board gamers who play Clank are going to be turned off? So, wait and see, I think. But that could be good, because I do rather like Clank.
Yes. No, it's a good game. I did enjoy it.
From their blurb, I guess the Acquisitions Incorporated bit is found your own franchise of the legendary adventuring company Acquisitions Incorporated and shepherd your fledgling treasure hunters to immortal corporate glory over the course of multiple games. Your game board, your deck, and your world change as you play to create a unique campaign tailored to your adventuring party. Be cunning, be bold, and most importantly, be ready.
Awesome.
So that'll be released in the fall of 2019. So you've got a year to build up the hype and get your anticipation up.
Autumn, Mr. Cage. Autumn.
We're
British.
God damn it.
I can't believe I got corrected on something of the English language.
You can't believe that, really.
I'm gonna have to get a brass plaque on the wall here saying the day John was corrected on an English term.
Uh-huh. Do you know what it's reminded me of? What I think would be a really great idea, speaking of legacy games and internet cartoons, obviously Penny Arcade being a fairly popular one. Another popular one is Dilbert. Do you not think a legacy Dilbert game would be fantastic? Dealing with the pointy-haired boss as you try to run a project over 12 games and it goes gradually wrong.
Maybe.
The problem with Dilbert I always found is it was a little bit true to real life when you worked in it.
We were all convinced that Scott Adams worked for Kinetic, weren't we?
Yeah. Well, I always said that my if I ever did an MBA, my thesis was going to be on you can solve any problem in an office environment by finding which Dilbert comics have been stuck. Because that Dilbert comic will be relating to the problems the people in your office are actually having.
That's
Definitely.
a clever idea, yeah. He says, thinking hastily about the ones on his wall.
I'm surprised you don't have a lot more of XKCD. It's compiling.
Oh, well, we've got we've got a Slack channel that has a feed from, funnily enough, XKCD and Dilbert and a bunch of other stuff. A load of webcomics feeds straight into that one Slack channel at work. So if you're ever bored, you can just go to the webcomics channel.
How can you be bored, John? Apparently you have a day job.
I should mention that I only read that feed about once every 3 or 4 months.
Whatever.
It's true. I am working too hard. I need to play more board games.
You do. Speaking of which, what
Indeed.
have we been playing?
Well, obviously I haven't been playing anything because I have been too busy working.
Yeah. Whatever.
That's a lie, Mr. Cage, and we'll get to that later.
I've managed to squeeze a few games of stuff in, but as you say, we'll come to that.
Yes.
Andy, what have you been up to?
Well, I've obviously taken up your mantle and played a bunch of light, small, short games. Mostly because it's the only thing I've had time for.
That was my jaw just hitting the desk.
I know. Well,
what?
It wasn't my choice, but I'm kind of glad I played them. The aforementioned Bewdley Gaming Group met on Sunday, so the 2nd or whatever it was of December, in a pub here in Bewdley, which was nice. The group consists of a fairly wide spectrum of age ranges, really, ranging from sort of early 30s all the way up to septuagenarians, believe it or not.
70-year-olds.
Yes.
Good effort.
Miriam, who was the septuagenarian in the group, was actually particularly good at games, so age is certainly not an obstacle for this hobby. She was quite sharp.
Is that compared to you or compared to Alora?
Oh!
Fair, though.
Both, actually. We had a couple of hours in the pub where we played Deep Sea Adventure, which I know Rory has recently reviewed on polyhedroncollider.com, and so I thought, I'll take the opportunity to play that, see what all the fuss is about. Rory quite liked it. We've just mentioned Clank, and I think the best way to describe Deep Sea Adventure is probably my first Clank. It's very similar in theme.
Sounds like a euphemism for something.
The idea is that you are a party of treasure hunters, and you're in a submersible, and you're basically diving into the ocean for treasure. And there's a little trail that goes from the submersible all the way down, and as the further down you get, the more valuable the treasure tokens are. So on the back of each one is like a random score, and there's tokens that are sort of dotted on the back to just give you an indication of potentially how valuable they may be. So the further you get down, the more dots they have on them, basically. And you roll 2 dice, which are numbered 1 to 3 rather than 1 to 6, and you move that many spaces along. And then you choose basically to pick up whichever treasure you want. Now, this is where the rub comes. This is the push you luck bit, like in Clank. The more treasure you carry, the more oxygen it takes, or the more movement points you need to get back to the submersible. So when you roll the dice, you remove the number of treasure tokens you have from your roll, and that's how many spaces you can then move from there. When you have treasure, and when you start moving back, you reduce the group oxygen supply.
Group oxygen.
Yes, so everyone shares a limited supply of oxygen. So you start at 25. Yes, I know. I don't exactly know how physically that would work, but...
Kissy, kissy.
I've been reliably informed her name was Beryl, not Meryl. But so apologies, Beryl, if you are listening. But so there's a limited supply of oxygen. So if someone gets really greedy and then buggers off back to the submersible, they're basically going to leave everybody in the shit, which is a tactic. A couple of the more experienced players did quite well. You play 3 rounds, and I drowned every single time.
Nice.
But
is that because you pushed your luck too much?
Basically, yes. But the
That's
idea
weird,
is obviously...
because you never do that in any game. You always manage to get your strategies come off just in time before the end of the game. No, hang on.
No, you're absolutely right, yes. It's like every game I play needs one more round for my strategies to work. But that's Deep Sea Adventure, very, very small, very, very light, plays up to 5 players, and takes about 20 minutes to play. It really doesn't take very long at all.
Okay, that sounds quite interesting, actually.
It is. It's kind of Clank light, as I say. The same sort of idea that the deeper you go, the more treasure you're likely to get, but obviously the longer you take to get back, the more chance you've got of annoying the dragon, or drowning in this case.
Did you play Celestia?
No.
I don't think you played it, did you, John? So Celestia's the one when you get this little cardboard flying bathtub, or as we'd like to call it, HMS Victoria Plum, and you've got to go from island to island.
Doesn't ring a bell.
You basically go to island, picking up treasures, and it's push your luck as well, because you're all in the flying bathtub together. It's actually a flying boat, but I think it looks like a little bathtub. I thought you'd played it because I'm sure we played it with Kaz, and she'd made the sound effect from the Lego Movie when the pirate ship moves.
She would definitely have made that, but I don't recollect playing that at all.
Is that the game you described as whimsical, Steve?
Yes, it is whimsical.
There you go.
Yes.
I remember seeing the picture of it, yes.
That's one where you push luck because you're a team in there, and at any time you can kind of jump off and grab the treasures on the island you're on, or you can push forward. But if you push forward, there's always a risk that the entire boat's going to go down and crash and burn, and everyone's going to be sent back to the beginning. It sounds similar to that, but different enough. I mean, this group, it's got the whole balance between your group mechanic and your own mechanic kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Wondered, and it's placed in about the same kind of time. It sounds like, so I'm intrigued how similar it is.
Okay. Well, it was quite good. I don't know how much it is, but it's very small. It only comes in a box. I don't know, about 3-4 inches long and an inch deep. So it's tiny stuff, but it works quite well. It was fun, and it worked well. We also played Sushi Go. Probably popular enough. I don't need to spend much time on it, other than to say it's a set collection game based around a sushi restaurant. There's a bit of card drafting involved, so you pick a card from a deck, from a hand, pass it to the left once you've played it, and then depending on what you play and what sets you have, depends on the score, depending on the bunch of tiles in the middle that are randomly determined at the start of the game. And there's not really much else you can say on that.
Tiles in the centre?
Yeah, we played Sushi Go Party, so maybe it was slightly different.
Sushi Go Party, right, okay. Because I've got Sushi Go.
Okay, right.
And I was wondering what you're on about.
Right, yes.
Yeah, because Sushi Go is just the drafting game. And it's a massive deck of cards. There's a good chance you're not going to have everything in there. And I am absolutely terrible at that game because I pin my plan on one particular kind of card, and that card never comes up. So I end up with a hand that's worth like 3 points at the end, whereas everyone else is scoring like 30 points because I've just got one of everything.
Yes.
It's fair to say I love that game.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was quite fun, but every now and again you just get handed dross and you're like, well, this is no help, thank you very much. But that was quite good fun. We all enjoyed that. I think I came third in that out of 7, which wasn't too bad.
Well, it's not last, so...
It's not, no, and not considering I never played it before, it was all right. Then we played New York Slice, which is all about pizza, in case you hadn't guessed, which is by Bezier Games, and my God, you can tell. So if anyone's played either Suburbia or Castles of Mad King Ludwig, it has elements of that. So one of the major elements of those two games is that the person in charge of the round, which changes every time, they basically get to choose the market in suburbia and castles. So basically, they can kind of like stack the deck in their favour, but everybody else gets to go first. Yeah. So you're kind of left with whatever's left. So you've got to try and balance your strategy against everybody else's and try to make the thing you're after less attractive to everybody else in kind of cunning ways and hope it pays off. And there's an element of that in New York Slice. So basically, there's a bunch of different types of pizza, and they're numbered 3 to 11, I think it is. And that's coincidentally the number of those types of slices in the deck, essentially. Oh, very nice. That's good head, Mr. Cage. Good effort.
Whoops.
Do you want a flake in that?
And some hundreds and thousands.
But for the first time in about probably 3 or 4 months, I managed to open a beer whilst we're recording something without it going all over my keyboard. I was waiting for it. I moved the keyboard away, moved the mouse away. The last couple of times in D&D episodes, I've been like, and then you can just see everyone else smirking. I look down shit, it's everywhere.
Very good. And beer goes with pizza.
It does.
How timely. So the idea is you basically have to try and collect more of one particular number, essentially, than anybody else. If you do, you get the points that number's worth. If not, you don't score anything. So you can kind of choose to eat slices of pizza, and you get the number of pepperoni lumps on that slice as points at the end of the game. And that's basically it. It's a set collection game again, and it takes, I don't know, half an hour, if that. So it's another quite small game. So that was all good fun. We played, so it took us about 2 hours to play all 3 of those games with learning rules as well. So all quite good.
Nice.
Cool.
Wow, Andy playing light games, by choice, no less.
Well, I wouldn't say by choice, but I was open-minded about the approach, let's put it that way. And I wasn't disappointed.
I got the impression you were trying to break them in gently. On recommendation of Mr. Tudor. Don't scare them off in the first time that you meet them. It's not a one-upmanship, even though you've got the biggest board game collection.
He also advised me not to be a snob.
Yep, it's good advice.
Aggro was mentioned, but not in any great detail. No, by me, not by them.
As long as someone didn't bring out their copy of the board game, you just go, "Oh, is this only the standard copy?"
Oh, I'm sorry, I've got the exclusive edition. I'm not playing this pedestrian version. Where are your metal coins?
Keep the voices in your head, Andy. Keep them in your head.
Yeah. So now everyone's good. Everyone's keen. It's a fairly new group, the board gaming group here. It's only met 2 or 3 times before we got here, and they are all relatively new-ish to modern board gaming. So the break them in gently method is definitely worth having. But everyone is keen to try other things, maybe get a bit heavier after some time. So maybe Twilight Imperium will hit the table in about 4 years' time.
Not in that group, I suspect.
Well, you never know.
I guess you could start it now, and then in 4 years' time, you might have finished it.
I'll start teaching them the rules now. In 4 years' time, we might have finished. I did threaten them, actually. I said some of the games I play, it takes like an hour to teach the rules, and some of the faces were like, really? Oh my God. They're just pretty standard, really.
That's a pretty normal reaction to that.
Yeah. See, to me, it's like, right then, that's awesome.
Oh dear.
What about you, Steve? What have you been doing?
So I managed to get a game in of Detective the other week.
Is this the one that Rory raved about when he made a special excursion at Expo to go and play it?
It is. It is, in fact, indeed Rory's copy of this game that I played.
Nicely done.
How long have you had that now?
About 2 months.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
Maybe 3. Yeah. Finally managed to get a game of it in. So, what Detective is it's a modern detective noir board game, and you are a member of a police department in a kind of generic American city.
Please tell me you're called Dixon Hill.
No. It's a co-op game, but really the players don't really make much difference, if that makes sense. You could play this solo, you could play it with 10 people.
So it's a bit like This War of Mine in that sense?
Yes, because you don't have individual actions. What you do is the players which you choose give you tokens which can be spent, basically, and special abilities. And having those players determines which special abilities you can activate, really. The majority of the game, though, is played on... You need a computer. Has to be played on a laptop, or we're using an iPad. And then the rest of it is all done with this deck of cards. And what it is a detective game. So you'll be basically searching clues. So I'm not going to spoil the plot, but I will say the first game in the box is you are trying to hunt down the backstory of a watch which has been linked to a Nazi who seemed to have escaped trial at the Nuremberg trials. So you're trying to find some history of where this watch came from and how it's gone from being owned by a Nazi to being sold in an auction in America.
Okay.
And you'll do this. The main way you'll do this is you've got so many days in which to crack the case, which is the kind of big limit on it. And every action you do takes time. So it's a little bit like Time Stories in this regard.
I was about to ask, yeah, it sounds a bit like Time Stories.
What is interesting is you don't know how long it's going to take you to do something until you've chosen to do it.
The old writing software approach.
Yeah, it'll take me 2 days. 6 weeks later.
Okay, it was more than 2 days.
The game in-game logic for this, and it actually works really well, is like, for instance, you might say, right, okay, we need to go to City Hall to go look at records on person A.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is you go there and you don't know how long it's going to take you to find that record and read that record and analyse it. So you'll pick the card up and that card will suddenly say 3 hours. It's like, okay, we've got 3 hours. And what's quite clever is it allows you to work from like 8 till 5 on a normal day, or is it 8 till 4? And you can go over that time if you want. You can work into overtime, but every hour you do overtime gives you stress, which can affect things later on down the line. So how much stress you've got can affect how different things work. Cool. But the majority of it will give you these cards, which give you a bit of story and a bit of information. And every so often the cards will say, go look at this person. There's a database online. There's a website for the game, which you'll go find out bit of information. So you look at a name of a person, you go online and check the name of this person. It gives you all the information about them. You've also got things you can actually look up on the internet itself. So you can do a Google search. It'll say, we recommend you look up this Google search, and you'll have information on Wikipedia in that, which leads into the case. Wow. Like, for instance, because it's based on real world events, because it's based on the Nazis, and the certain operations of names that the Nazis did or the Allied soldiers did came up, and it was like, well, what does that mean? Let's look that up.
It does beg the question, though. Could someone sabotage the game, essentially, by adjusting some of the results that you might get?
No, because they're big major things. They're not like a little obscure piece of information. It's a like Allied operations in World War II or something like that.
Someone can't go into Wikipedia and just write down in the first line, John is a wanker, just for that.
No, that's not true. You can do that.
Oh, I know you can. Would it ruin the game? That's the thing. If it's doing a sort of text search, blah, 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 and it comes out with this phrase that someone's just chucked in for laughs.
Who would do such a thing?
Me.
When are you next playing, Steve?
What is cool with it as well is it gives you these digital codes for evidence. So say, for instance, you get a fingerprint. The way the game handles fingerprints is it gives you like this 16 hexadecimal code that you type into the computer, say enter evidence, and say, right, now you've now got the fingerprint of this. And if it matches something else you've already looked up, this fingerprint is the fingerprint of Joe Bloggs. Okay. We've got something here. And all the forensic evidence is done that way. It gives you like a little description of what it is, and then you plug that number in, and the database works out where it's all pointed.
So does the app give you like a great big board with lots of bits of red string shown on it?
No, this is the best thing. The rulebook says we recommend you play this with either a big piece of paper or a flipboard.
Excellent. Awesome.
Because Rory bought the pre-order version, and the pre-order version comes with these big 6x4 postcard-sized photographs of all the suspects and characters, and they're big enough that you could stick them on a wall and draw lines connecting them all in between.
Oh, that's amazing! You just need a ball of wool and some push pins. Oh, that'll be superb. Yeah. So is it just the one case that you get in the game, or are there multiples?
So the base game that's available right now, I think, has got 5 cases. There is also one special case which I think you can download online, which is the one they do at demos at conventions. It's like a little mini case.
Right.
They've announced an expansion, so this is, I can't remember which city it's supposed to be set in, but it feels like it's kind of like northwestern US. They've announced like a Los Angeles case set, which is going to be another 5 case files.
Boston.
And there is a little bit of a legacy element to it, because certain pieces of evidence you find will go forward into the next few cases.
Okay, that's quite cool.
Nice, yeah.
Don't think it's like they're all directly linked, but there is crossovers, so you may find out information in case 1 that'll affect case 2 and case 3. Now, we've only played case 1, and I actually think I'm in a position that I could play that again if I played that with another group of people, if that made sense. Mainly because we did so bad at it and missed out the information.
So does it change the outcome if you get or miss some of the clues, do you know?
No, but what it does is it doesn't tell you what the outcome should be.
Right.
Oh.
So what you do is at the end, you have to enter a questionnaire. And it asks you, like, this one with the watch, like, who had the watch this year? Who stole this item from this place? Who murdered this person? And you're like, what do you mean murdered this person? When was there murder? We haven't got any data on that. So we had to put in, like, don't know. Now, we did bad. I think we scored something like 9 points. 13 points, which I think is out of 50.
Well,
Does
that's
it
pretty
score
shit,
you
man.
down if you just guess things and get them wrong? Or you don't know?
We don't know because it suggests it says if you don't know, answer don't know on the questionnaire. So I don't know if you get minus points for a wrong answer. I said we did bad. Apparently, Rory says that Ignacy Trevicek, the designer of the game, said to Rory that Rory had scored the worst points he'd ever seen.
And that was 14.
Oh dear.
So yeah, I'm keen to play this again, and I've got to admit, I've got Rory's copy. I've got Rory's copy until he wants it back, which is basically until he no longer has to deal with an extremely small human. But I feel as if I want to buy this for myself now and play it. I want to play it with you guys, actually.
I'd like to play it.
I would
really
like to play
interesting.
this with you guys.
It sounds kind of vaguely similar to a cross between. I don't know if you guys played LA Noire on PS3 or Xbox.
Nope.
It was very good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was piss easy, but it was a sort of noir detective sort of thing in US city du jour, just after World War II, etc., etc. And it was an interactive detective thing, so you had to sort of walk around, look for clues, interrogate suspects, blah 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 blah. So that kind of setting sort of thing, and interrogation and investigation sort of side of things. But it also sounds a bit like Sherlock Holmes called Consulting Detective, a group detective sort of thing where you have a bunch of clues. You can choose where to go on the map, and it will give you, or not, relevant clues or not. And some of the newspaper articles that you can pull out may be used in future cases as well, because you get 10 cases in the box. And at the end of it, you also get a score. This is how you work out your score, blah. This is how well Holmes did. You, Sherlock Holmes. There's no way you could do it in like 6 guesses when we took 15,
He's obviously cheating.
Definitely, yes.
In fact, maybe he was the murderer.
Do you know what? He is the common theme throughout all of those mysteries. It's like Agatha, it's like Miss Marple. She was always there. I think Miss Marple was basically a murderous old bat.
It's a bit like Dexter. Technically he's on the crime scene investigation, but actually he's just nudging a few details here and there, just in case they spot that it's him.
Yeah. What's that piece of evidence? Oh, no, nothing at all. Just throw
Oh no, I just
doily
dropped
over.
that, sorry.
Yeah, that's mine. But it sounds interesting. I would like to play Detective.
It's definitely worth a go, yeah.
Speaking of dodgy detectives, there's a new series of Luther coming out in the new year.
I've never seen any of Luther yet. I really want to.
Oh my god! It's amazing!
Neither have I.
What?
There you go.
What's wrong with you people?
We're busy, John.
Busy with the wrong things.
We
Oh no,
play
hang
games.
on, board games. Oh no, I'm doing it wrong. No, that's not true. No, Luther's great. You should watch it.
I do like Idris Elba.
He's good. He's particularly good in that series.
Excellent.
So, board games. Speaking of board games, I haven't been playing any. Steve, what have you been?
Speaking of board games, let's talk about some role-playing games.
Indeed. Well, actually, a peripheral, it would seem, that you've been pissing about with recently.
So yes, I got sent a copy of The Big Book of Battlemats,
Ooh.
which is basically a kind of A4 ring-bound book of Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder maps.
Ooh.
Kind of generic maps that you can basically use in your role-playing games. Now, this is the fantasy-themed one. I've been reliably informed that another fantasy-themed one is coming out soon, and a sci-fi related one will be coming out soon as well.
Okay.
And what these are kind of like, they're almost kind of like laminated, it's like kind of glossy pages. And basically, if you want to play a quick battle in D&D. Just open this out to the page of your choice with the terrain of your choice and slap some miniatures on and off you go.
Sounds good.
Interesting. Yeah.
How long's it been out? Because I'm pretty sure I saw that at Expo. I might be making that up.
Right, it was on Kickstarter. Kickstarter, and I think it went to backers, and then they've been selling it at conventions. So it was at UK Games Expo, it was at Tabletop Gaming Live, which I went to, and I believe it was on sale, went on sale to retailers this week.
Right, okay. So it's hot off the press.
Yeah, so previously you could only get it direct from Loke Battlemats. So that's like bloke, but without the B, so it's Loke.
Bloke.
So previously I think you could get it only direct from them, but now you can basically get it in most, like Chaos Cards and what have you. You can get anything online. Now, what is pretty cool about it is it's, as I said, it's kind of like laminated-ish, so you can get a dry erase marker and mark anything on there.
Awesome.
And wipe it off afterwards, which is pretty cool because some of them have got like pre-made little dungeons with walls in, but some of them are just like open areas. So if you wanted to put like extra walls in to divide it up or make little dungeons, you could do.
Okay, it looks pretty nifty actually. I'll try and stay away from it because A, my chest is getting full, and B, I have already purchased all 3 sets of the dungeon tiles for D&D.
Steve, I give him a week before that gets bought.
A week? 2 days.
Yeah, you're right. This evening.
We shall see, but it's a nifty idea.
Yeah, it's lovely. The only criticism I've got is just because we're playing Storm King's Thunder at the moment, which is, of course, the giant-themed Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and they're reasonable sizes for most combats, but with giant combats, you're looking at a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
So you'd either have to reduce the scale and say like each square is like 10 feet or 20 feet or something to make the battles look big. But if you're going to stick to like a 5 feet, which is kind of a normal scale when you're using Dungeons and Dragons, some of the areas are going to be a bit small for like the big epic fights.
You put a dragon on there, half the map's gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that moves swiftly, or smoothly indeed, into the final thing that I was going to talk about this evening, which is D&D, because I haven't really done any other board gaming except, or tabletop gaming, or online gaming, depending on how you look at it. Haven't done any other sorts of gaming except D&D in the last, quite a long time actually.
So you have done quite a lot of it.
But we have done quite a lot, that is true. Andy's group has resurrected itself now that he's finished playing Deep Madness. Sorry, I mean Moving House.
Wanker.
And it was good fun. It was good to get back into it. So
it was actually, yes.
Our characters, just before we left off, had just leveled up to level 9. I had to double check that before we went back into the group because I'd completely forgotten whether or not I'd leveled him or where I'd made a copy of it, whether I'd made any sensible choices. You have to do that thing where you go back and you double check everything, and then it's like, are their hit points okay? I just checked that with Steve recently. I'm pretty sure it should be about 10 less than it currently is. Have I made a mistake? Or no, I was just tired and I was looking at strength instead of constitution. Oops.
Skills.
But yeah, it's good fun to get back into it. I find it weird that we haven't played it for quite a long time, and now we come back and play it, and it feels slightly alien to slip back into that particular character's skin and start thinking like they thought again. It's a weird sensation. I don't know if you guys have ever had long-running campaigns where you've had a big break like that.
I haven't actually.
No, I've not actually. We always said we were going to restart the campaign I played when I was in high school. And I've actually, ironically, still got nearly all the notes from that. So I've still got everyone's old character sheets.
Oh, wow.
But
that's amazing.
I don't think that would ever work.
That's 25 years ago, Jesus.
Yeah, I found when I was actually unpacking, speaking about packing, so I was unpacking about 9 months ago, and I found I obviously must have pinched a science workbook from school, because it was one of those workbooks which had lined paper on one page and graph paper on the other, which are brilliant for writing Dungeons and Dragons adventures, because you use the graph paper for your map and then write all the notes on the lined paper
idea.
next to it.
That makes sense,
yes. Yeah. That's a lot more practical than the leather-bound tomes I use. So I've gone for theme over function.
Just generally.
Because, I mean, one of the points you've sort of, the peek behind the curtain here is one of the things you've said about this particular adventure, the one I'm running, the Rise of Tiamat or Tyranny of Dragons one, is that it feels quite linear. Now, it's an interesting statement, and I don't disagree with you, because even as the DM, I think it is quite linear, which does restrict me somewhat as the DM, because obviously the book is trying to sort of shoehorn you and shepherd you in this particular direction. So it's interesting that you've picked up on that. Does that feel bad or good or restrictive as a player?
It's different, let's put it that way. So in Storm King's Thunder, it feels almost the other end of the scale. Like, there is no certainty about what we should realistically be doing, except that every choice we make, Steve gives us a look like, well, okay, I mean, you could do that, but... And I can never tell whether that's because he's genuinely just thinking, like, I would never do that, like, that's an awful idea, or, I haven't prepped that!
It's probably the latter.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that Storm King's Thunder was written something like 2 or 3 years after Rise of Tiamat.
Yeah, you can tell.
And Rise of Tiamat is one of the biggest criticisms of that. And I would also say that actually one of the biggest criticisms of Storm King's Thunder is, especially at the point where you guys are in the campaign, so which John's group is that it's not clear what you're supposed to do. There's no clear path, it's leading you to this one place. And it takes a little bit more for that kind of path to solidify. And that's been the big criticism that other people have, is that their groups just tend to go, and just wander around the Southern Coast for like 6 weeks.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, as the DM, the different, because the Tyranny of Dragons saga is split into 2 smaller books rather than the one big thick book you get from Storm King's Thunder. And there's a very clear difference. And the way it's written, the way it's structured, between Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. From a DM's point of view, Rise of Tiamat is probably better, because it does seem a bit more free form, in the sense that it's structured really weirdly. So there's potential to shoehorn a few additional things in. But at the same time, there is this overarching thread of, right, the adventurers need to do this, then they need to do this, then they need to do this. And then they keep going back to Waterdeep to do various things, and then they go off and do one thing, and then come back, and then go off and come back. So there isn't an enormous amount of scope, unless I just let them go wild. To
Dangerous idea.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Otherwise, they could just go so far off piste they're in the Algarve,
It's funny, because so for the 2 different campaigns, for Rise of Tiamat, I've got a sorcerer called Falco, who is... one of his traits is that he's basically very single-minded. So as soon as he gets something in his head that's what they need to do, that's the one thing he will focus on, to the detriment of other stuff. Like, if that's the thing he's going to do, he doesn't want to go and do the side quest. No, Andy, nope. I know it looks tempting. Nope, nope. And because he's quite a charismatic player, and I'm quite an irritating person, the rest of the party did what I wanted to do in that sense. In the other one, and so... he always wants to go and do the focused, straight on, probably the thing that's to do with the plot, as in try and stop the Rise of Tiamat and try and stop the Dragon Cult. That's his number one goal in life. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't give a shit about anything else, or whatever the rest of the party wants to do. He'll get pissed off if they're not going to go and just do that thing.
As opposed to going into the tempting-looking crypt that the DM sort of waves in front of you like a nice carrot. No, we're not going in there. That's clearly ridiculous. God damn it.
But I've prepped this, god damn it. And I haven't prepped the other thing that you're about to go to. Fine, we'll wing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Whereas in the other game, I've got Zanhorn the Bard, who is one of the more chaotic people you will ever meet. He's still quite single-minded, but he's single-minded in a really general purpose of just becoming famous. So he'll be up for doing whatever seems like the most heroic sounding thing, which often has nothing to do with the plot. So
yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
I don't know how I managed it, but although Rise of Tiamat feels quite linear and Storm King's Thunder feels quite open, weirdly the 2 characters that I've picked to play them just happen to fit leading a group of people in both of those situations by chance, I think.
Now, I would say that I'm not running Storm King's Thunder exactly as written in the book. So I am adding bits and pieces in between, changing things to suit what you're doing, taking a bit of pressure up here, taking a bit of pressure down there to try and kind of make it fit more cohesively, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, one of the things it does is it says you're supposed to do story leveling and get levels after certain chapters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And though I'm doing story leveling, if you actually run the first few chapters of that book as written, you will gallop from level 1 to 5 in like 3 sessions.
Okay.
Wow.
So what I've done is I've padded that out a bit and brought a couple of some things forward just to try and, balance things out a little bit. But with the other group, I ran a adventure called Legacy of the Crystal Shard, which I've again tailored a little bit to people's backgrounds. So changed a couple of things in there to the backgrounds, and that is one of the best written adventures I've ever run.
Awesome.
Because what that does, and it's system independent, so it was written when they were transferring from 4th edition to 5th edition.
Okay.
But they knew at the time that a lot of people were still playing Pathfinder and 3.5. So the actual campaign book does not include any stats for anything.
Huh.
So it just says, right, throw a troll, throw a giant, throw a...
No, it says you'll do this encounter, and the encounter may be like ambush in the pass. And then what you'll do is you'll download either the 3.5, the 4th edition, or the 5th edition booklet, and it was downloadable for free from Wizards of the Coast website.
Nice.
That says, right, the ambush, the pass ambush includes 2 yetis and a winter cat or something like that.
I remember that.
And then gives you the stats for them. Yes. But what that adventure does, it's really good. And I've pulled that into the future stuff and the stuff that I'm doing with Storm King's Thunder, is it says, right, there's 3 bad guys and they've all got their plots. And your players cannot defeat all 3.
Right.
So whichever ones they concentrate on, they're going to be able to maybe get 2 of them. And that 3rd one is going to get away scot-free and do what they wanted to do.
God damn it.
Interesting.
And it's really quite clever because it says straight away, it gives your players this wealth of choice that says, right, not only have they got choices and it makes them feel completely freeform, but it also says, look, everything now has a consequence. So if they don't, like, for instance, the 3 main threads at the first part of your adventure were to go help the elk tribe, which involved going and killing the like frost dragon skeleton. It was go to the dwarves and clear out the zombies, or it was to confront Vaelish Gant and kick him out of Bryn Shander. But they were all supposed to be right at the very same time. So what you did is you started, what was quite interesting is the party started down the kicking out Vaelish Gant. And as soon as I said, oh, the zombies, the dwarves, and the helping with the elk tribe, they went, all right, we'll go over there and do that.
Cool.
And completely ignored the plot that they were almost finished. So... But it was really good, and it's taught me a lot about how to structure an adventure in that what it's trying to do is, like, here's the villain's plots. Work out how the villain's plots work, and work out how things like the second act, depending on where you went, certain events would have happened before or after you.
Okay.
Like, you could have either gone to the lake and sorted out the pirate ship, or you could have gone up to the mountains and sorted out they were trying to hatch a Ramirez egg. And what was clever about that was if you sorted out the pirate ship first, then the Ramirez egg would have hatched. If you just sorted out the egg first, then the pirates would have attacked one of the towns. And it's really clever, and it was like, okay, well, no matter what they do, something else is going to happen.
That's really cool.
Something bad is going to happen, and it's going to have been affected by what you chose to do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which, as a player, is then terrifying when it sounds like there's probably 6 parallel threads, and you're pretty sure you can't. Well, you know you can't do all of them. So there's going to be repercussions from the bits that you didn't attend to.
It's like playing something like Skyrim or something like that, but not knowing which is the main quest line.
Yes.
In a video game, the main quest line with a big star next to it saying, this is the main quest line, everything else, this is a side quest. In D&D, you don't get that little star.
No, there was definitely that feeling in ours. It's like, which is actually the main quest here? I really have no idea. Because it keeps changing, because the group keeps changing focus. It's a little difficult to work out. Are we supposed to be doing this, or is this something we could just do in our spare time? But it's really a good thing. It's a really good thing to do because it does give us the all important agency that we keep talking about in any game.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is great.
It can make it a ball ache to DM when the party goes completely off piste. There was, like, as I said,
who would do that, right?
There was a session where I worked out 3 possible routes the party would go, and I was like, right, they're going to go for one of these 3 routes. And at one point, they were like, we're going to go here, and they go, are we going to go here? Yes, we've made a decision. It's like, right, okay, that's fine. I'll just put the notes for those 2 paths to one side, get out the notes for this 3rd one, and then just as I'm about to say, and then you do this, they go, oh, hang on, what about this? And I'm like, oh crap.
No. Yeah.
And they went and chose a 4th route, which I hadn't made any plans for. So it's like, all right, I'm winging this session now.
Yep. That sounds familiar.
Yes. So the other thing I was going to mention, or one of the other things I was going to mention, is kind of group dynamics and how different teams of players work differently.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Rise to Tiamat, the group has one kind of group dynamic. Sometimes they work together. Most of the time they're working together, but they often have discussions, let's say, about the best way forwards, and they don't always agree terribly well, but they do eventually get round to it. That's one kind of group dynamic, and Falco often feels like he's on the edge of things a little bit, having joined the group a little bit later and having some deep backstory bits and pieces that keep cropping up. But on the other hand, the Champions of Chance that we play with Steve, that group feels really quite well knitted now. So the characters know how one another are likely to react to different situations that crop up, and they've got certain ways that they expect to work together. And it's funny how you get that from, how many sessions? We've had something like 11 sessions now with the Champions of Chance.
About 10 or 12, because we started just after the new year and we're coming to the end of the first year, and you've been playing twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so it's funny that in one it feels much more gelled, the group does, than in the other, just by virtue of the different people in the game and the way their characters work and the situations they're thrust upon. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, our group it has its own gel in a way, whilst the characters are very different. And they all really, really are different. I mean, Arrakis is a tiefling sorcerer, chaotic neutral. You've got Imnek, who is also chaotic neutral, but probably more on the side of good, and Arrakis is more on the side of evil, if you have a spectrum. You've got Cockwind, the thief, the rogue, who's...
super neutral.
Super neutral, yeah. He just doesn't give a shit as long as he gets some dosh.
And gets to eat.
And gets to eat, yes. And then you've got Adam's Sylvana, the druid, who is risk-averse, I think is probably the best way to describe him.
Yeah, that's fair.
But actually quite a useful character. When he actually draws that flaming sword of his, he does kick quite a lot of ass. But the actual character interactions is very, very different, because it's not... I mean, we've seen your team, John, in the same adventure, really does talk a lot more about what you're going to do, how you're going to approach it. Well, it's just a different dynamic. But, you do go through it, and you do discuss things and what to do and how to approach things before you actually go and do it. Whereas our group just kind of goes, it will do this and see what happens. Usually because either Arrakis or Cockwind ends up doing something dumb.
I've had enough of this. I'm going to do this. No, wait. No, it's too late. He's set that fireball off. He's thrown those ball bearings.
Pretty much. It's something along those lines, yeah. So either Cockwind will try and sneak through a doorway he probably shouldn't, or Arrakis will talk to someone he probably shouldn't, or...
open a portal he shouldn't.
We'll gloss over that.
So, speaking of group dynamics, your group, I think it was last session or possibly the one before, had an interesting time. I've never experienced player versus player combat or any characters being at odds the way your team went through that particular session of the episode.
No, that was... I've never done PvP before. That was the session before last, actually. And it comes back to what John's just mentioned about the opening a portal. Basically, Imnek, the warlock, sort of barbarian-y type warlock character, has his patron who's been speaking to him. And Arrakis has... Well, his background is basically from the Abyss, and he's got this voice of a greater demon, a Balor, in his head every now and again when he encounters this black ice, which is one of the driving forces behind the Crystal Shard adventure. And it turns out that Arrakis is basically related to, it turns out, Urtu, hurrah. And every time he sees this, he gets this feeling in his head, he hears voices, he gets this drive. And of course, Arrakis came out of the Abyss with part of the Crystal Shard, although he didn't know that at the time. He just sort of basically robbed it and A lot has happened. But anyway, Arrakis is basically fairly single-minded and wanting to understand what the crystal shard is and what it does, and he wants to score one over on pretty much anybody he can. And Imnek, Derek's character, has seen these images, and essentially both characters have been given pretty much the same information via different means, but have really interpreted it very, very differently. And it's very difficult to tell who's right, although I'm not just basically saying it because it's me, but I honestly think Arrakis is correct, but it remains to be seen, you know.
The crucial point is that they're both convinced that they are.
Yeah,
the characters,
yes.
At least.
But, I mean, the group has since discussed it. But basically, it came to a head where I think we went quite off-piste here, actually. But, and Steve winged this. We found a large stone seal in a room beneath a town hall because we were searching for another crystal. And Arrakis wanted to find out where it went, obviously, and just got it in his head. He's basically going to do this. The rest of you, I'm doing it whether you like it or not. Imnek tried to step in, having been talked to by his patron, who'd said, no, don't do that, it's a really daft idea. And he tried to stop Arrakis, which was probably a bit silly. So Arrakis turned around and said, go away, or I'm going to hurt you. Imnek did not go away, so Arrakis
Things
tried
went
to hurt
south
him.
quickly from there.
Yes, Arrakis did not go away, and Arrakis tried to hurt him, but it was basically ended up as a girly slap fight because neither character could hurt each other, and essentially one of the characters just ended up going, for the love of God, will you two just behave?
That was a bizarre experience as the DM because it was both amazing because both of you players were playing in character. And I was just feeding little bits of tidbits of information to you both to try and... I wasn't trying to force a direction for either of you, but it was just like, here's what your character would know. And it was going that way. But at the same time, it felt very uncomfortable. And I could see Derek, who was playing Imnek, was also getting very, very uncomfortable with it.
In fact, he said, I'm very uncomfortable with this, Steve. I don't like where this is going.
Yes.
Which it was kind of like, I wasn't quite sure what to say at that point because it's like, well...
Back down then.
That's between you guys, really, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not allowing PvP, but I'm not stopping it either, if that makes sense. Because you were doing it for a reason that made sense for your characters. It's not like you're going, oh, I'm just going to be a dick and hit someone else for the sake of it, you know. It fitted with the story. So if either of you been a bellend, they would have gone like, bugger off, you're at my game, but neither of you two are going to do that. You're going to play it as your characters.
That's the thing. I mean, I was conscious when I did it that it obviously was probably quite difficult to watch and to be involved in. But again, as you say, it was basically the character. He was completely single-minded in wanting to open this bloody door.
So I set up the and sort out the stream for you guys. So I was sat watching or listening to this, and it's rare that I voice an opinion on programs I watch or anything like that verbally, but I did find myself shouting at my phone listening to you guys do this bit. Like, for the love of God, just like hug or kiss or do something, make up, be friends, and shut up about the bloody Lich.
Do you know the thing is, at the end of all of this, despite it all happening, it's given both characters a slightly better sense of perspective, in the sense that they now basically know pretty much what or who is behind the story, as far as they can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also given them both a common purpose as well. So basically, they've sat and talked and gone, do you know what? This is basically our only hope. You know, let's both work together and try and find out, because although things have happened since, and I think it has actually helped in a way.
Those things where the parties are at odds against one another and then they come back together stronger, I think that's definitely something that makes a group better in terms of an enjoyable D&D story. Although maybe there are less extreme ways of testing the boundaries, as it were.
Yes. In a way, it's made Arrakis even more single-minded in the sense that he's convinced now that he was right. But as you say, so's Imnek. So we'll have to see where it goes.
Indeed.
You'll have to see what happens.
Indeed.
So we do the bulk of that. All the stuff that Steve runs is all over Roll20 over the internet. The stuff that Andy runs is face-to-face, and the players in that in that game are definitely generically more keen to do face-to-face stuff. Andy, you've used Sirenscape sometimes, and Steve, you've used it over the internet.
I use the BattleBard stuff, which is built into Roll20. So I've used Sirenscape in the past, but on the Roll20, it is the BattleBard stuff. So it's just a track you play. It's not the dynamic one that Sirenscape is.
Okay. So my point is that you both used audio sort of feed-ins to kind of enhance the atmosphere a bit. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it can be a bit distracting. I think both of you have got a good level with it now. I've recently invested in a lot of Philips Hue equipment, so I can voice control lights in my house, which is very cool. But you can get colour changing bulbs for this. And something occurred to me the other day, partly because we're thinking about redoing our kitchen dining room at some point and thinking about what we might have in there. But it occurred to me that you could use like coloured bulbs to adjust the lighting in the room based on what you're doing in the adventure. So if you're creeping into like a cave, you could turn the lights blue and sort of dim, flickery or whatever to reflect, water and stuff. Or like you're going through the woods and you could have it like a dull green, that sort of stuff. I just thought, I wonder if there's other things that you could put together for doing those kind of just subtle, not, making it difficult to play the game kind of effects, but just subtle things that kind of that bring you more into the moment.
That would be awesome. I wonder if you could like link it to a sound set in Sirenscape, for example. Like if I pressed, woodland, click, and it would change the lights as well as the music. Now that would be awesome.
Definitely in the Hue app, you can do things like activate a particular scene. So you could say like activate forest scene, and it would then turn the lights down low and green. Whether you could link that to something like Sirenscape or something along those lines, I think there's definitely, if it hasn't already been done, there's definitely a market for doing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Just thought it was a really interesting advancement that you could add to things that wouldn't detract from the game itself, just kind of subtly add to it. And I think that's one of the secrets that you guys both do well, is just adding little bits in the background that just like bring you into the moment a bit more.
Excellent.
Keep up the good work, DMs.
Thank you. We try.
Right then, I think it's time to answer some questions from our mailbag.
Indeed, we shall rustle around Steve's sack again.
It's not been emptied for a while, so it's pretty bulgy.
Oh.
Mark Cook asks, what games would you recommend to play with the family over Christmas?
Russian roulette. I hate Christmas.
Oh dear.
Just kill him now.
Yeah, it'd be easier. I just generally tend to play the standard family games, to be fair. So Ticket to Ride often comes out at Christmas. Game of Trains comes out at Christmas.
Yeah. Suro, Blockus.
Yeah, Sura is definitely one, because although Sura is not a particularly deep game at all, it's a game that even non-gamers can get their head around really quickly and enjoy as well, because there's nothing more fun about knocking someone off the board.
Yep. Unless it's a young child. No, hang on. That's quite a lot of fun, actually.
So Mysterium's actually quite good as well. I mean, obviously not a Christmas-themed game, but it's easy to pick up, and it's because it's a team game. It is slightly more complicated than the games you've mentioned. Probably on a par about Ticket to Ride, I'd say, but because you can guide people through it, and it works for pretty much all ages as well. It's quite good. And it plays up to 7.
Dixit, another one that's good along the same lines.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And obviously Codenames, played that a lot.
But of course, yes. I would say Pandemic, but that's probably a bit too stressful the way we play it.
Are there any board game related Christmas goodies you're hoping for?
There's definitely hoping for and are likely to receive. They are two worlds apart. To be honest, not really. Because I think...
No, because I'm impossible to buy for, apparently.
Steve and I were chatting about this the other day, actually, just briefly. It's like, what do you buy for people, and if people want to get you something for Christmas? Because board games have obviously been getting steadily more expensive over the last sort of year or two, and it's now getting to the point where most of the board games we either want or need to feed our addictions are kind of beyond the sort of comfortable Christmas present price to just go, or you tell your mum, I just want this, go and get it on Amazon, and she hasn't got a bloody clue what you're talking about. So it's not the sort of thing that I would say you can get from a relative, maybe a spouse or a girlfriend, but that's about as far as it would go, I would say.
Mm.
I would say one thing I did notice that looked quite cool, and if you got a game, especially if they're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, is that Art and Arcana book. That looked like a good kind of present, because that's a book which you can buy at like Waterstones or Amazon. It's quite easy to find, and it's relatively cheap as well. It's in your definite like gift price range kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you just say Art and Arcana?
Art and Arcana.
It sounded like Art and Arcana.
I heard the same, but I was going to let it go.
Not just me, then. That's good for once.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different book.
Maybe the adult version.
He wants me to buy him what?
Do you know what? If I turned around and said, "Can you get me some like folded space stuff for Christmas?" I reckon someone would get me the Blu-ray of Final Space.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't be bad.
That's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but I've seen it twice now. So
Personally, I would say if people are going to get me board game related goodies, they would have to be things like dice, because you can never have enough dice.
true.
True.
Dice trays, just little bits and pieces like that, like stuff to, I don't know, enhance games that are sort of trivialities that you probably wouldn't buy yourself.
That's not a bad idea, John, actually. Yeah, dice towers, metal coins, just something like that. 20, 15 quid, something like that can really enhance. And because the metal coins you can use in multiple games, so it's not just specific to one game, which is really quite good.
So that's what I would suggest.
Are
you listening, relatives? No, of course you're not. No one listens to this podcast.
One of our Wolves board gaming crew, Ziggy Chris McIntosh, has asked best games for Christmas, which obviously we've answered for families who aren't gamers. Again, would see previous answer. Top stocking filler games for 2018. Oh, there's a good one.
Game of Trains.
Game of Trains, yeah. Seriously, Brain Games really need to pay us royalties at this point.
Yeah. I'd say something like Uno.
No!
Get out.
I'll get over it. Stocking fillers, you arses.
Game of Trains.
Get some Game of Trains or Stackbots or
What's that
Port
beer
Royale's
game?
supposed to be quite good.
Or Resistance or Coup or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Resistance or Coup would be a good. That's a good shout. Yeah.
Because they're quite small. Coup, I'd say, over Resistance. Because Coup's a bit easier, unless you're Steve and you're shit at lying. But
I agree with
I
that
found
one.
that the issue with Resistance is that unless you've played it about 10 times and you're with a familiar group, it doesn't really work because there's not much blagging. Whereas with Coup, it's a bit less reliant on the blag, as it were.
Is there a duck in your room, Andy?
Oh, that's Kipling. Kipper, shh. Come here.
Quack.
No, he's crying because he's bored.
Give me attention.
Pretty much.
So-
Well, it's not that he wants attention. It's just he wants to be not in the room he's in, basically.
It's got legs.
Oh, he can. He will. He'll bugger off next door and do it in there. I don't want to be in here anymore and walk somewhere else. Stupid animal.
He needs his slave to carry him through.
Basically.
Paul Grogan asks, I have this strange itch down below. Should I go to my normal doctor about it?
That very much depends on what your normal doctor consists of.
That's true, actually, yes. It's probably board game withdrawal. I think you should play more board games.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Speaking of Paul, because we don't speak about him enough, although we are probably one of his biggest enthusiasts.
Proponents.
I was listening to the Secret Cabal the other day. Not for their news content, I should add, Tony. Don't you worry. We've sorted out our own news funnel now. Yours is safe.
We can't be sued for plagiarism.
I couldn't tell whether, when I listened to that episode, Tony was entertained. Jamie sounded entertained, but Tony generally seemed like, well, they can go and find their own news somewhere else. So we did. But if it makes you feel any better, Tony, we're not the only people. You're not the only people that we were stealing news from. We did it from everyone on the internet. What was my point?
Paul Grogan.
Paul Grogan, yes, got a mention on the Secret Cabal. In fact, they were most impressed with one of his videos on a game that they were talking about that was great.
This is totally getting cut.
Had to re-listen to the episode now. It was.
Cerebria, the inside world.
So there you go. I'll cut that in later.
Oh dear.
I just thought it was great that they are reaching out across the channel to fellow podcasters and content creators, and that they're encouraging those links. And Chris, the next time in the UK, we will definitely try and meet up, because we think you'd enjoy meeting up with, what was it we were described as? I think he might in fact have coined this phrase.
The European secret cabal, I think we were described as.
The Top Gear board games, the secret cabal of Europe. We'll take those. Yeah.
We've been called a lot worse.
Really, really a lot worse.
Mark Campbell Helm asks, recently there was a question on the Board Game Trading in Chat UK page about turn narration. Do you turn narrate? How do you feel when others do or do not narrate their turns? And how much do you turn those narrations into part of the story? So what he means by that is, so for example, my horde of angry Spartans charge forward their 3 hexes and commence battering the living shit out of the green elves of doom. So essentially more of a sort of an RPG aspect of it. Not at all, really, unless it's a Euro, but it very much depends on the people we're playing with. One thing I've noticed when we're playing heavier Euros more than anything else, the most common phrase that leaves everybody's mouth is, I'm going to, and then they'll do their turn. And they'll talk about the mechanics that they'll do, like I'll put my meeple here and then I'll take this money and then I'll get that. Mostly because it's bloody complicated and you're just kind of going through your thought process.
Yeah, most of your energy is just focused on not letting your brain leak out of your ears.
Yes.
And therefore,
Very
coming up
much
with some
so.
narration on top of that is a bit too much.
Yes.
I always think it also helps as well, so other people actually know what you're doing, because there was a person I used to play against, the Worcester Gaming Group, who never narrated his turns at all. He would just like shuffle some things around and go, I'm done. And you're like, what the hell did you do?
Yeah.
You know, and the narrating and take your actions, like I am going to place my worker there, grab 2 of them cubes and cash those in for 2 gold. That's the kind of level of narration I would use, and I got to admit that's the kind of narration I like.
Yeah.
Don't think I could handle someone going, well, Lord Fildipop now moves to the Wizard's Tower and claims 2 wine cubes.
No.
A particularly fine vintage, I might add.
Yeah.
I think everyone would get really wound up with that and would leave the table after 5 minutes.
The only narration I tend to do is I am going, obviously you've got to start with that, but I am going over there and I'm going to claim this resource because it looks like insert either Steve or Andy here requires it, and therefore that is the best move to do to the detriment of myself, but it means that they can't do it.
Yes.
Yep.
I would say that's about as far as it goes.
Mark also asks, what one game and one expansion to a different game would you most like to see in your sack this Christmas? And why?
Oh, I don't know. And one expansion to a different game. I'm most struggling to think, A, which games I don't own that I want, and B, what expansions I don't have. Because that's quite a small list.
I'd love to see a copy of Twilight Imperium 4 in my
Good answer. Yes.
Christmas sack,
Yes.
which is the one game I think is least likely to be given to me because it's like over £100. So that's where I'd most like to see it.
I could go one better and go for Kingdom Death Monster, but no.
True, yeah.
I would most like to see a copy of Gloomhaven so that I could actually play the damn game, because we played one episode with you guys and I was hooked. We haven't played since, and that was, I don't know, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, I forget.
It's a good point, actually, John. I would love to see Gloomhaven as well. And potentially The Edge, you know. I wouldn't actually mind to see Massive Darkness or Zombicide, actually, on a slightly more serious note.
Really?
Yeah. I'm curious to see what or Descent, actually, another different type of dungeon crawler. Or maybe Conan, something like that. So they're all very different to the sort of games I usually play.
Actually, yeah, I played one round of Conan with you, Steve, and I really enjoyed that. It was good.
We played one of the 2-player scenarios, and I think we needed a few more players because I think the 3 and 4-player scenarios were better.
Okay, but even that 2-player one, that was good fun.
But expansion-wise, oof.
Expansion-wise, I don't have every Talisman expansion. There you go.
Obviously. I think there's one Pandemic expansion I've not got. for the base game.
Do you know what? I've got 2 of the Pandemic expansions. I've never played them. Actually, I would say that there's a lot of expansions I own that I've never played.
Likewise.
So I'm not. I don't actually think expansions are worth me getting. But
what I would like to see, expansion-wise, is a guide, a list of all the expansions that just add more cards or more content without changing fundamentally things, so that you have to either play with or without that expansion. If it just adds more variety, that is a good expansion in my book. So a list of all of those would be amazing.
I've just thought which expansion I'd like to see in my sack this Christmas, and that's the Game of Thrones expansion, which is the new Big Bucks expansion, which I think came out this week.
Oh, yeah.
And I would also need to buy a supersized laminating kit and some card sleeves for it, because if the Game of Thrones is anything to go by, this will be covered in alcohol within the first 6 months.
There's an innocent look on my face now.
I'm not actually sure the Game of Thrones with expansion will fit on my table.
Yeah, it needs to be paid in
because it's another board. Yeah, it's another board which has got like everything to the west of Westeros on.
Good grief.
Wow.
Yes. That's definitely on the list.
Robin Munn asks, much like bottle caps from Fallout, imagine cardboard was no currency, what would be your most valuable game?
As in the amount of cardboard that's in it.
I guess we can interpret this how we like, but yes, I'd imagine so.
I saw that because he said about Fallout, bottle caps become the currency in Fallout because they're the rare thing.
Yeah.
They become the coins, don't they? So cardboard tokens become your...
Oh, God.
Well, I think Gloomhaven is a small gold mine if cardboard becomes currency.
Cardboard mine. Are we talking... If it's just the amount of cardboard, then Talisman. Because, I mean, I've got so many expansions that it's got an expanded box that now isn't actually big enough for it anymore.
Wow.
If plastic's included in it, then it's probably Mechs versus Minions for me, because that thing's got about a gajillion miniatures in it.
I think it's going to have to be Deep Madness if you follow that logic for me. Or...
Yeah. Stephen Wills asks, thoughts and opinions about painting miniatures. On the one hand, I feel guilty looking at my unpainted miniatures, but I refuse to just ink wash them to save time. Am I making it hard for myself, or am I being a snob over painted miniatures?
I agree. No, I feel the same way, actually, because I've just looked at, the 230 miniatures in Deep Madness, and I fully intend to paint them all someday before I'm dead.
I have been contemplating purchasing an airbrush for the last 2 years for this very reason. Thinking, can I do not quite as much as what you're saying about just putting ink wash on, but similar to what they've done with the Sun Drop with Lords of Hellas and Nemesis, because that really is... It's a base coat, it's a zenithal highlight, which is getting an airbrush at an angle, just spraying it, and then it's like an ink wash, isn't it?
Yeah, basically.
And to be fair, for most board games, to be honest with you, I think that looks good enough. It just makes the detail pop of the miniatures.
Yeah, totally.
That being said, I am addicted to watching Sarastro's painting guide.
He is good.
Where he takes board game miniatures and then paints them, and he paints them in such a way that you could do this at home, kind of thing. Because he's not using you must look at 90% of the painting tutorials on YouTube. It's like, and now I use an airbrush to do this and an airbrush to do this, and I'm now just going to use this airbrush to paint in the reflection of myself, airbrushing into the pupils of this 28mm miniature.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it is surprising because I think it was him that you sent me a video where he painted Luke Skywalker holding a lightsaber.
Yes, it was object source lighting.
That's it. And it's oh my god, it's like, oh, I could do this at home. It just makes it so simple, and all of a sudden, there's blue ink washes coming out, and it looks amazing at the end of it. And I'm thinking, it's really not that hard. Yeah, it is actually that hard.
It's not that hard to get the general gist of it. It's very difficult to make it look perfect like they do.
Absolutely right. Yeah, totally.
One of the things I think Sarastro is really good at is he teaches you more about some of the really clever things that make the miniatures pop a bit more, because he always talks about how, trying to reflect the light from the base kind of thing, which is, most miniature painting guides were like base coat, ink wash, highlight, and off you go. But he adds these just little extra touches, which are take it that one extra level, really.
And it is perfectly doable with a little bit of practice. And my miniature paintings really come on over the last 12 months because I'm painting my way through the Mansions of Madness miniatures, which I can't actually keep up with Fantasy Flight's release schedule. They're releasing more miniatures than I can paint at the moment, which is a bit of a problem. But you can definitely tell that my painting skills have got better Because the ones I started with are okay, and they're perfectly fine for board gaming, but the ones I've done more recently are a lot more complicated, a lot better. The highlighting, the ink washing, the shadowing and stuff is so much better. I've even done OSL on one of the Fury of Dracula miniatures, because he's holding a lantern.
OSL?
Object source lighting. So if like they're holding, say, a potential light source like a lantern or a candle or a torch or something, you can highlight the part of the miniature in such a way that it looks like it's been lit up by that light source. So you add a little bit more white or yellow or whatever it is, and you sort of gradually work it up. But apparently it looks all right.
One of my friends did it's a War Machine miniature. They nicknamed them Kittens with Mittens because they're like these elves with like power gloves, basically. And he's like holding this power glove fist in the air, and it's like supposed to have this blue glowing gem. And he's done this amazing object source lighting on the face. So it's got the blue glow of the gem on his face and the shoulder and the arm. And it's like, oh, that looks absolutely amazing. He goes, it's just a blue highlight in those areas. It's nothing fancy.
Still looks brilliant.
It's like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah, because the one I've done was Lord Godalming in The Fury of Dracula. And everyone had told me, actually, it looks really good, Andy. I just think he's just spilt custard down his top. Because it's just bright yellow.
We are our biggest critics.
I actually haven't painted a miniature since I moved out of Malvern.
Sort it out, Tudor. I've even still got my... I tell you what, I think it was you. I can't remember who it was. I think it was you. The best thing I've added to my painting repertoire is a wet palette. Oh my God.
Yes. Chinese takeaway tub, a dishcloth, and some greaseproof paper.
Yes, that's all you need. It's brilliant. Those little dish sponge cloth thing, the spongy ones. Chop it to size. It's brilliant. I've got a double layer of it because it holds a bit more water in it. Bit of grease. It's fantastic. And of course, you just cut a new piece of greaseproof when you filled it up, throw it away, job done. It's amazing.
Did have to get a new dishcloth in mine after a while, though.
Did it go mouldy?
It went a bit stinky, yep.
Mine's gone foosty because I've not owned it for ages.
So, Father Stephen and the collective, I must confess, for I have not painted a miniature since, well, it's got to be over a decade, in fact. Despite the fact that I bought a considerable number of paints, paintbrushes, and other accessories to help me, not to mention a certain Infinity faction that need painting.
Indeed.
That's the last thing I was painting, actually, those Infinity miniatures, so I do want to finish them off, especially because I've now bought the Operation Ice Storm expansion, which gives me like 4 more miniatures for each team, so we can actually now play a 300-point battle properly.
I would love to play some more of that game. We got hooked on it briefly, and then we didn't play it anymore.
Yeah, we had like 2 weekends, we just played it we're going to play this.
Did you OD?
That's it.
Basically.
No.
No, we went for Operation Ice Storm, which was the starter set they released, and it's got several missions which basically increase the forces bit by bit and increase the concepts of the rules. And we basically just burnt through Operation Ice Storm because we were loving it so much.
Oh, cool.
And then we were now at the point where we can now play with like the full rules, which is complicated, but lots of really cool tactical options in it.
Excellent.
We just need to both pull our finger out and get some scenery together and paint these miniatures and find a weekend where we can play a couple of games of it.
Awesome.
So, in answer to his question, yes, you're making it hard for yourself. No, you're not being a snob. We're exactly the same. It's worth the investment. It's
worth the investment, but it's time is the issue I find, and I'm struggling to find the time to finish painting mine. So I'm trying to find a way of some miniatures can I do a quick way that makes them look good?
Yes. I've discovered another secret someone told me. There's Ian Schofield, he made... Ravage, yes, because he's a really good miniature painter. I mean, he is incredibly good. I said, how the hell do you do so many miniatures in such a short space of time? Hairdryer. That's brilliant! I was like, oh my God, why did I not think of that?
There you go.
Wet palette and a hairdryer. Job done.
That also answers the question about how you get rid of that itch, by the way. And on that bombshell,
I think on that note, it's time to end.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We've been Polyhedra and Collider. If you'd like to give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice, we'd very much appreciate it. We are available on Twitter as a collective. We are at PolyhedronC. I am at Wahoffmadenga.
I am at Sonic H with a 0.
And I'm at John_Cage.
We can also be found on Facebook, on Polyhedron Collider, and Board Game Geek Guild 2726. We've mentioned quite a bit about our Dungeons and Dragons sessions. We are streaming them live on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider, and those sessions, as well as this podcast, will be available on youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider. I would say that it is our actual sessions, so we're not like Critical Role or anything like that, where it's all like planned and
CGI'd.
goes smoothly. There's lots of stopping. We go, right, exactly how does grapple rules work?
How does that
It's
spell
not that
work?
bad,
Can you
but
do that?
there is-
What type of creature's that?
There is a little bit of in-game discussion, that's for sure.
But for now, we shall see you soon. We will. Our next episode will most likely be our best of 2018 episode, which will probably hit after Christmas. And then we'll be hitting you up shortly with our games we're looking forward to in 2019, sometime in the new year. So for
Exciting
now,
times.
Yes, indeed.
tatty bye.
Tatty bye.
Catch you later.